Talk to me a little bit about what's happening in Egypt today. There's been a lot of excitement over the last year or so about these infrastructure projects and a lot of excitement about what's happening in the markets.
Yeah, well, good morning. First of all, and welcome to Egypt again. There's been a lot of change, but it took a while to come. And only this morning the PMI survey is out just a few minutes ago, and it's up to 50.5, up just a little from 50.3. And for the first time since the survey began, we've got employment growth. So it's taken time. Now, what's happened is there's been infrastructure spending, government spending, but not private sector investment, which has been held back by both economic conditions and very high inflation, and shocked 2 years ago by the effects of the devaluation. So the end result is the government has led the change. There's been major road building. There's some other major grand projects, of which there's some debate about the economic efficiency, but at last the system is moving. Now, that's not to say that right now, in the last week or two, there's been some pressure, the last few weeks, pressure from international markets in terms of the debt markets, which you might want to come on to. So there's been some selling of the debt. But internally within Egypt, things are beginning at last to return to some sort of normality.
Well, coming in from the airport, you can't miss these massive infrastructure developments, and you can't miss the signs all along the way, you know, advertising for a new this and a new that, come here, buy, invest. But in terms of everyday Egyptians, you're saying it's finally starting to trickle down?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say trickle down. It's now slightly benefiting companies, but for the average person, it's still tough. You have to remember the last few years, inflation has been very high. It was running at nearly 30% at one point in terms of food and vegetable prices. So the average person has been hurting from increased prices of fuel and water, general electricity too. So subsidies have been cut, and the end result is that the average person has been hit. It will take time to trickle down, and that's the problem. There's still pain on the street, pain from the effects of the devaluation and from high inflation. And the fact that it's only now we're beginning to see, probably for the first time since 2011, job growth.
And talk me through a little bit, a little later in the show, we're going to talk more about President Sisi's recent trip to China and certainly what's happening in terms of the foreign investment scenario and the foreign investment case for Egypt. But I want to ask you about what's happening with these major infrastructure developments. Later in the week, we're going to be heading out to this new administrative capital. They're telling me it's going to be open in 2019. They're going to move some 6 million people out there eventually. What's your take?
Well, I have to say there are lessons to be learned from 1930s economics in America and the New Deal under Roosevelt, where the plan was to get people back to work all over America, building schools and post offices. Here, it's about the Grand Projet, whether it's the Suez Canal expansion, although the Suez Canal economic zone is different, which I'm a fan of. The zone is great. But the new capital, the fact is that I can see that it's quite good to have a vision, but I'd like to see some more small projects around the country to get people back to work. But I think that the government's putting a lot of store in it, and also a new summer capital on the coast in the Mediterranean. So I would like to see where they're expecting to get new job growth, because we need new job growth from the private sector, not just from government spending on infrastructure projects.
And of course, all of this coming out of President Sisi's plans for economic development, the commitments with the IMF. Is he getting it right?
I'd say it's still under review. It's getting better. First of all, you had to induce stability, and that, I have to say, has happened. There's stability.
But at what cost?
Well, no matter what happens, there's going to be a cost if you're trying to reform an economy.
When you talk about what's happening next in terms of these relationships regionally, where's President Sisi today, would you say?
Oh, you and I know, but geopolitics can take a long time. You need a whole program to discuss that, which we don't have. It's very, very, very interesting interplay across the region.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now, to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.